Everyone, David Aragona and Craig Milkowski are taking a look at one of the Kentucky Oaks prep races being run this weekend on Saturday at Oaklawn Park. Race 11 on their Arkansas Derby Day undercard is the Grade 3 Fantasy, going the mile and the 16th distance for the 3-year-old fillies, and a large field of 12 runners signed on. A fairly wide open affair, Craig, as you can see from the morning line. Not exactly sure where the bettors are going to go here. We got courses that are bookending the field in the number 1, My Main Squeeze, and the number 12, Torpedo Anna, who are both likely to attract support here, but they both have questions to answer, as does everybody in this race. My Main Squeeze trying open company for the first time, and Torpedo Anna coming off a layoff.
This is a tough one. I wouldn't have wanted to make a morning line for this race. I wouldn't have had a clue where to go. So I'm thankful that we have this as we record. It's a pretty wide open race, in my opinion. There's a lot of different ways this can go depending on how the pace plays out.
To get a sense of how this large field might sort itself out through the early stages of this race, let's take a look at the Timeform US Pace Projector for the Fantasy. And the number 4, All Things Go, Craig, wasn't on the lead in her debut, but she made a quick move past about the 3/8 pole to take over, going the 6 furlong distance. So she definitely showed some early speed to get to the lead by the time they reached the quarter pole of that 3/4 mile affair. Stretching out to the mile and the 16th in her second start, you've got to imagine the connections are going to be looking to get her forward, but there is some other speed in this field, horses that want to attain forward position, so you do see that fast-paced flag showing up.
Yeah, and I think the just the sheer field size has something to do with that as well. We build some points in as the fields get bigger, and 12 is just about as big as we see here, occasionally a little smaller, but there's definitely some speed signed on. There's a lot of lately raced horses in here, so this one's a bit of a wild card for me.
If this race does come apart, note that the number 6, Badia, is the horse that has the LP flag on the pace projector, indicating that she has the highest Timeform US late pace rating in this field. Let's go through this group mostly in post position order, beginning with the number 1, My Main Squeeze, and we'll take a look at her most recent victory in the Maddie May Stakes at Aqueduct, facing New York breds, and she has faced New York State breds in all 6 prior starts. However, Craig, she's been beating up on a pretty good field of New York breds compared to prior years, and you can see it in her speed figures. They've been ticking upwards with each start, and her last couple of numbers, both triple-digit Timeform US speed figures, suggest that she really does fit against open company. It's nice to see the connections taking a shot in this Kentucky Oaks prep race.
She does fit, and she's been in great form, obviously, winning 4 of her last 5. And when I pulled up the chart from that last race, even though she won so easily, all the horses that were in behind her have come back to match or improve their speed figures. So I think that's a totally legit number, and it fits very nicely in this group.
Yeah, I do see those big gaps behind her, which often are indicative of races that have valid high speed figures. A 10-length gap between the second and third place finishers 2 back, and she put nearly 13 lengths between herself and the third place finisher last time in the Maddie May. So it does seem like My Main Squeeze has legitimately been earning some fast speed figures. I will say the Mike Maker barn, which started the year off so hot at Aqueduct in the month of January, has really cooled off and kind of been in a little bit of a slump lately at Aqueduct, and she's been training in New York recently. So that's a minor concern for me as she ships into Oaklawn, but she definitely seems like one of the horses to beat based on her last couple of efforts. The number 2 is In Just My Heels, a long shot in this race. She's one of 5 horses exiting the Grade 3 Honeybee, which is the local prep feeding in to this Fantasy, and she finished the worst of those coming out of the Honeybee into this Fantasy. She was contesting the pace that day. Wasn't a particularly fast pace, but she still was unable to sustain it. She's just going to have to run better this time.
Yeah, she had an impressive maiden win where she got that triple-digit Timeform US speed figure, but hard to find an excuse last time. As you note, the pace wasn't all that quick. It was contested, but she had nothing left for the drive.
I can make more of an excuse coming out of the Honeybee for a horse like the number 3, Midshipman's Dance, because she was breaking from post number 10 in that 10-horse field and was just hung out wide around both turns. She was legitimately 4 wide around the clubhouse turn, 4 wide around the far turn, the widest of all into the stretch, and she never stopped trying. She was only beaten less than a length for second place despite finishing 5th that day. So I thought she at least proved that she can handle the 2-turn mile and the 16th distance. I think the bigger question, Craig, is whether or not you want anybody out of the Honeybee, because it didn't necessarily feel like the strongest race given the upset winner.
That's the question I have as well. Even if she ran back to her other races and improved a little bit, it would put her in the low triple digits. This is a race with a 108 Timeform US race rating, so she would need a pretty big step forward here.
One of the most intriguing horses in this fantasy lineup is the number 4, All Things Go, that horse shown leading on the pace projector. We'll take a look at her lone prior start when she was a debut winner at odds of 25-1 back in February at Oaklawn. And this was a visually impressive performance, Craig. Despite going off as a long shot, her jock rode her with a lot of confidence, making an early move past the half-mile fold to break this race open, taking the lead and putting away a favored rival as she came onto the finish line, winning impressively. This race got a strong speed figure, and we talked about it with My Main Squeeze. When you see those big gaps behind a horse who earned a speed figure like that, you typically can have some confidence that they did run a legitimate number.
For sure. And when you look at the chart in Timeform US, it's been a pretty strong maiden race. I mean, this race, already 3 horses have come back to win, and it's only about 6 weeks later. You don't often see that in a maiden race this soon. Obviously, there's the question of 2 turns, but she was 25-1 that day. She certainly didn't run like it. She's going to be a less price here. Has some real talent, but there are some questions. It's a pretty big jump up in class and in distance.
Yeah, and actually, Eclipse Thoroughbred Partners have brought into her since that last race. So definitely there is some feeling that this might be a horse who flew under the radar that day and is one that you want to get on board with. She's by Outwork, who is a versatile sire, can get horses to go longer, but Outwork is a very good debut sire when you look up his stats. On the dam side, it's really all turf pedigree for All Things Go, so I do wonder what she's ultimately going to want to do as a racehorse. It's a big ask going from 6 furlongs out to this mile and a 16th distance against Graded Stakes Company in just your second career start. The number 5, Where's My Ring, is the only maiden in this field, though she is coming off a graded stakes placing last time in the Santa Isabel out in Southern California, where she was second behind a very good horse, Kinza, arguably, or maybe not arguably, I think decisively, the most talented 3-year-old filly out there right now, who unfortunately is not eligible for the Kentucky Oaks, her being in the barn of Bob Baffert, who was banned by Churchill Downs through this year. But Kinza has been running speed figures that just tower above her competition in Southern California. And if you buy the last couple of figures earned by Where's My Ring, both when she was narrowly beaten against Maidens 2 back and then last time in that Santa Isabel we just took a look at, she might be the horse to beat in this race.
She very well could be. The speed figures say she is. As I noted, that 108 race rating, she's already eclipsed it twice, and you would expect her to be improving still. So strong contender for me. I mean, I get having maybe some questions with California racing being so isolated these days. We don't get a lot of shippers to really test these speed figures out, but I have no reason to doubt them. They were run on big days, and I think the numbers are legit.
Yeah, she's obviously handled the 2 turns. She's got more experience than a lot of horses in this race, and she feels like a legitimate contender coming in here, despite the fact that she lacks that victory on her resume just yet. The number 6 is Badia. She is a Tom Amos trainee who seems like she's taken a step forward since getting on the dirt. They ran her on turf the first couple of times. Decent efforts overall, but she's now won 2 of her last 3 since switching over to the dirt, all of them going 2 turns at fairgrounds. Her only loss 2 back came against Tarifa in an allowance race. No disgrace losing to that filly, who might be the Kentucky Oaks favorite when all is said and done. Last time out, Greg, it was an off-the-turf affair. She was beating somewhat weaker competition, so she's just going to get a bit of a class test here to see if those victories stand up against a tougher field here.
Yes, weak field last time, but at least she won the right way. I mean, she did it easily. She ran her first triple-digit speed figure, so she's got some talent. It's just a question if she can handle the step up, and she's also one that seems to, at least last time, was pretty forwardly placed in her best effort.
The number 7 is Recharge. She and Candy Isle both coming out of the same race, the Sunland Park Oaks. Recharge was the narrow winner that day, gutting it out by a neck under Joel Rosario. She really dug in gamely to hold off that foe coming onto the wire, keeping her undefeated record intact 3 for 3. However, she's never faced company that's quite this strong, and she's also never run a speed figure that really puts her in the mix, though she does go out for Dangerous Connections.
The connections are good. I'm not sure about the ability of this horse. That Sunland Oaks was not the strongest race we're going to see, as you can see by the 90 speed figure. It was one where she set a slow pace, so maybe that held the number back a little, but she'd still have to take a big step forward.
Well, we've already touched upon the Honeybee a little bit. Let's take a look at the stretch run of that race. And you want to focus on the eventual winner, Lemon Muffin, who's in the white cap and the white blinkers coming off the far turn. Also highlighted Tapichinale, the horse in the pink silks and black cap. In behind them is West Omaha, who's trying to battle on for third in this race. But no question that Lemon Muffin ran the best race of anybody on this occasion, Craig. She was a maiden coming into this race, had never tried a distance beyond 7 furlongs before. This her first two-turn test, and she handled it with aplomb, winning quite decisively under Keith Asmussen on this occasion. This was during a period when Dwayne Lucas's horses seemed to really be firing on all cylinders. I think he had 3 winners that Rebel weekend when Lemon Muffin was successful. We'll see if she can come back and duplicate that performance, but even if she does, I think that the waters are getting deeper from the Honeybee into this fantasy.
Very much so. I don't think there was anything fluky about that performance. She loved the 2 turns much more than the others in that field. The concern is she just really didn't run very fast, as we see by the Timeform US speed figures. Just a mild step forward. She's yet to hit the triple-digit mark. So like you did earlier, I really question the quality of that Honeybee Stakes.
The runner-up in the Honeybee was Tapichinale, who was a big price that day, able to finish second at 22-1. She was one of the horses that was contesting the pace earlier, took a shot at the lead coming to the quarter pole, but was turned away by Lemon Muffin, game to hold on for second. She's been steadily picking up checks in some of these races at Oaklawn, fourth in the Martha Washington after, again, being forwardly ridden. She's running fine in these races, but is another one that's got to prove that she really classes up with this tougher field.
And I even wonder about the distance a little bit for her. I'm not sure she's really going to want to go much farther than this. This could be the max. She's kind of been backing up in all of her races of late. So she's not for me, but she could be a pace factor.
The number 8, West Omaha, was the beaten even money favorite in the Honeybee, and I thought she was fairly disappointing that day, Craig. She didn't have the most comfortable trip. She sort of got turned sideways at the start a little bit when she was bumped at the break and found herself in mid-pack, but it's not like she's a horse that needs to be towards the front to be successful. We've seen her rally from off the pace before, and she could just never really get her momentum going in that race as she just grinded on for third, beaten 4 lengths by Lemon Muffin. She has had a different rider on her back in all 5 of her prior starts. Now she's going to have her 6th different jockey in Tyler Gaffalione getting upon. That's kind of an unusual situation for a Brad Cox trainee. She seems to take a lot of money every time. I'm just not sure how good she really is.
I would agree, and you can see it in their speed figure column. She hasn't hit the triple digits. Maybe she had a bit of an excuse last time, as you noted, but again, there hasn't been a whole lot of a development going on with a West Omaha.
The number 9, Candy Isle, she's the other horse coming out of the Oaklawn Park Oaks that we talked about, Recharge, having won. And Candy Isle took a shot at that horse in the late stages, was just turned away by her. She had reeled off 3 consecutive stakes victories prior to that, but all against much weaker competition in New Mexico. This is going to be a real class test for her as well.
It is. I mean, if it was a match race out of the horses from the Sunland Oaks, I might actually prefer her, as she was making up ground into that tepid pace where Recharge just kind of hung on. But unfortunately for her, there's many other rivals to deal with as well.
And rounding out this field is one of the most intriguing contenders in the race, the number 12, Torpedo Anna, as she comes off a layoff after having been the beaten favorite in the hunt in the Goldenrod last fall at Churchill Downs, going off at 4-5, but settling for second behind Intricate. In retrospect, Craig, I question the quality of that Goldenrod a little bit because I personally had high hopes for Intricate off that performance, and she's just been a little disappointing as a 3-year-old filly. Torpedo Anna beaten by that one, though she did have an excuse that day. She hopped up at the start a little bit, was off slowly, had to do some work to get back into the race on the clubhouse turn, and was just wide every step of the way. Also, Ken McPeak was running her back for the 3rd time in just a month. She had been so impressive on debut, and he really ran her about every 2 weeks thereafter. Maybe a little bit too much for this lightly raced 2-year-old filly to handle, but she did look pretty talented, visually impressive in those first 2 starts of her career.
Yeah, I don't want to hold it against her too much. That intricate hasn't really developed. It doesn't mean that she can't. The biggest concern for me is, well, a couple things: the layoff, obviously, and the post position. It's not going to be an easy journey from the 12 hole going the mile and a 16th distance. But she did flash some real talent, particularly in that allowance win at Churchill Downs.
Yeah, I think she's really good. The post is tough, and I also wonder if she really is going to be a two-turn dirt horse because she does have that quick turn of foot that we saw in a couple of one-turn races last year. She's a daughter of Fast Anna, who does get mostly one-turn horses. We'll see how far she ultimately wants to go on Saturday. Well, let's throw up our picks for this Grade 3 Fantasy, and I think we mostly agree, Craig. We landed on slightly different horses, but we each have our top two picks, our top three picks in the mix. You're going with the number one, My Main Squeeze, that New York bred who's trying open company for the first time, but based on her speed figures, she definitely fits against this field.
She fits, and I expect her to get a really nice trip on the rail from Flavien Prat. Should get some pace in here according to the pace projector. So I'm expecting a good race from her. And I didn't want to overlook that first time winner last time, All Things Go. I thought she showed some real talent. It's a tough ask, but if she drifts up from that 10-1 morning line, I'd probably take a shot with her as well.
Yeah, the price horse that I have in there in the mix is the number 3 Midshipman's Dan, so I thought that got the toughest trip in the Honeybee, but she's my third pick. I do like My Main Squeeze as well, but I put the number 5, Where's My Ring, on top. I just think because she's a maiden coming into this race, she might not get the respect that she deserves, but I think her last couple of speed figures stand up to scrutiny. They look legitimate. She raced competitively against Kinza last time, who I do think is head and shoulders above this class of 3-year-old fillies from an ability standpoint, and I think we saw in the Honeybee, a maiden can beat some of these horses and step up in class at a big price. So we'll see if Where's My Ring can do the same in the Grade 3 Fantasy on Saturday. She's my pick. Craig's got the number 1, My Main Squeeze, in this Fantasy Stakes, race 11 at Oaklawn Park on Saturday. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.